Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. Thanks for tuning in. If you could hit that like button, hit subscribe, I would much appreciate it. It's that time of the week, second time I've done this, that I answer your questions. You guys submitted a whole bunch of good stuff. And we'll go through them. So let's get started. All right, first question from Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. What a great username. What is the best way to avoid a drone equipped with IR in a rural and urban environment? You can't really, to be honest with you. I think, or FLIR, if that's what you're thinking of, the heat signature. You're going to emit a heat signature. You can put something between you and the heat seeking device, like Tyvek or some kind of insulation, and it definitely breaks up your signature pattern, but you can't really do that. I hate to break it to you. Another one from Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. How much potassium iodine tablets should a family of 4 have on hand? Yes. If you're thinking about that for nuclear radiation, now I'll say I like to, a lot of people, many people have predicted the end of the world. And I like to look back at history and give myself perspective on the time I live in today. Because World War II, World War I, I'm sure in the 1970s, the way the culture was going then, a lot of people think that it was the end of the world. 2008, people thought it was the end of the financial system. And although I do think we are in for some hard times, I do try to gauge my biases, because human beings are kind of biased towards the worst possible scenario. And I look at the math of our debt and I think that's not sustainable. But it doesn't necessarily mean nuclear war. It could. It's definitely a possibility. But as George Gammon says, there are no certainties. There's only probabilities. Do I think it's probable? I do not. But is it good to be prepared with food and equipment, etc.? Be more self-sustainable. I think we've learned a very valuable lesson from 2020 to be way more self-sustainable as a country and as individuals. So hopefully I answered your question there. You should definitely, potassium iodine has more than one use too. So multi-use items are good. Third question from Florida Prepper. Has the Air Force gone totally woke? And are we battle ready to take on adversaries such as China or Russia? Okay, I'm going to answer this question. I have to tread lightly here. This is only my perspective, not the perspective of the DoD. But I think anytime the thing that unites the military is the mission. You take all these people from all these different backgrounds, and they may have a specific job, whether that be finance, maybe that is the trigger puller, maybe that is the flyer, but all of those jobs add up to warheads on foreheads, if you will. And that's kind of has always been the focus. My job adds to the mission here, and that's what unites people. Anytime you bring race into it, you start highlighting people's differences, I think that takes away from the unity, my opinion. Has the Air Force started to do that? 100%. Have I experienced an uptick in that in the last 5 years? Absolutely. And I'm kind of giving you my PG opinion on it. I have a lot of thoughts, and they're not very good. But I think it's going in the wrong direction. That is just my opinion. Can we take on Russia and China? Absolutely, yes. Some of these things are not events they're a process. And so what I'm nervous about is over time, over a decade or 2 decades, all the good people leave and all the yes men stay. And when you have people in power that are yes men, that don't ask questions, that aren't free thinkers, you get things like in my opinion, the Afghanistan withdrawal. And so do we have the capability to defend our country against Russia and China? Yes. But as this process happens, good people leave, and the people who are incentivized to stay in because they like this, it can go downhill really fast. And culture, I've always said good culture is like losing weight. It's hard to do and sustain. And bad culture is just like gaining weight. It's natural. Your natural inclination is to be negative and to think for yourself and all this kind of stuff. And if that's fostered, it can lead to very bad things over decades. So my humble opinion, there's definitely a lot more woke stuff in the military, but capability-wise, the military is still the best in the world. I like the quote from, it was during World War II, the German Spitfires, I think they were. They were said to be able to shoot down 5 P-51 Mustangs. The problem is we had 6. So right now, we're the people with the Spitfires. We have the best tech. And anyways, hopefully I answered your question. All right, next question, just Joe Vott. Cricket protein, does it compete with other proteins with the 9 essential amino acids? Who controls the market on their production? Okay, I don't really prep for these questions. I just kind of answer from what I know. Yes, there's protein from insects. A lot of people pushing this insect thing are Malthusians. They think that the world can't sustain more human beings. And Thomas Malthus, I think he was in the early 19th century, said the world was going to run out of resources in something like 1970. And no, human beings are very resourceful. More technology came online. People were able to produce more in smaller acreage. Same thing with animals, or produce more animals, smaller acreage. So his predictions didn't come to fruition. The people who think green energy, cow farts apparently add to the sun monster killing us all. I don't really believe that, but insects do not, and they're easy to reproduce, and that's kind of the push for cricket protein, in my humble opinion. There are some people that want to eat insects for some reason. I've ate my fair share of insects being an Air Force survival instructor. Not that delicious. Not like a delicious medium rare steak. Anyways, I think the push away from animal protein is from this Malthusian line of thinking. Is cow farts are going to kill us all. There's not enough resources. And it's the same thing with the green energy push as well. So that's who I think is behind the push for cricket protein. Insect protein has always been around, but the push for it, the propaganda campaign, I think is from, starts with the W, ends with F. EF. Okay. Next question, extra. Do you see the energy crisis in Europe affecting the U.S.? And if so, what should we be expecting? Great question. And this, I know enough to know that I don't have the ability to control markets. And unfortunately, central planners don't know that. And so they think they can just move the gauge this way, move it that way, and everything will work out just fine. It's not how it works. And so let's look at second and third order effects of what's happening in Europe. what was his name? Zoltan Pozar, I guess he works for the Swiss credit system. He said a $2 trillion economy in Germany is reliant on $2 billion of oil from Russia. And if you turn that switch off, that $2 trillion economy gets switched off as well. And it is non-linear, meaning it doesn't decline like slowly at a 45. It drops off a cliff. When energy prices quadruple, like they have in Europe, mom and pops, little businesses cannot even make a profit, so they just shut down. And if you look at the headlines, that's actually happening in Europe. So notice we have cheaper energy here. We're not as reliant on Russia. However, we are very reliant on Europe for goods. And they're a port, and they're part of the very interconnected shipping lanes, etc. And so, do I think it would have as much of an effect on our energy prices? No, but it will for sure have an effect on all other prices because the supply chain will break down immensely. If Europe cannot ship things, cannot store things, cannot make aluminum, all these things that come from the energy crisis that they're dealing with, it's going to affect the United States. I think the stat I saw was we export 500 billion and import 300 billion of goods to Europe. And that's going to break down in big time. So is it going to affect the United States? 100% it's going to affect the United States. And all these things are interconnected. And again, when you have politicians who go, maybe, what if we shut down all our own energy production and we're 100% reliant on Russia for energy, and we're part of NATO, which NATO was started to protect us from the Soviet Union, just Russia. Makes sense. It's very dumb. And when you have unserious people making unserious decisions in very serious times, it gets very dangerous. And that's what's happening in Europe right now. Happening in the United States too, but so all said and done, it's very much going to affect the United States. Next question, Yeti at Large. Will you talk about your observation of Rule 33? I recently did a video about workplace communication using the version of Rule of 3. I don't know what that is. Sorry, I don't know what that is. However, just to digress, there is a Rule of 3 in survival called you can live 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, in that order, and you should prioritize them accordingly. That's why when we're doing medicine, airway, breathing, circulation first. Another one from Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. What will finally shatter the illusion that prosperity can be printed? Ooh, great question. I think after, studying history and, trying to get people's attention, over time, good times just create soft people. It's just what it is. And I've kind of come to accept that. And it's not until they realize that they're getting the people who are, I've seen these political ads, for instance. He wants to cut Social Security. Fine, we won't cut Social Security. You will get the amount you were promised, and it will buy you a gallon of milk. That is all. And I think we have to get to that point where every single month you are noticing the price of everything go up, and your average plebe is going, I want to do anything to get rid of these dollars. And that shift can happen very slowly and then all at once, unfortunately, because it is somewhat psychological. Because if one person thinks that way, then their neighbor maybe thinks that way, and so on and so forth, and it's this domino effect. So I think pain is required, unfortunately, because if 2008 happened, nothing to your average person, nothing really went wrong. We printed money, we gave it to banks, we bailed out corporations. People are like, man, we can print prosperity. Same thing happened in Weimar, Germany, and it lasted for a while, and it happened really slowly, and then all at once. And we live in a kind of a different world because the dollar is the world reserve currency, but it's coming for the United States. It is just math, as Greg Frost says. It is just math. So the pain, I think, is required. And you know, a lot of people who grew up in the Great Depression have those memories. Those memories faded a long time ago. That's 4 generations ago. So they taught the lessons to their kids. Their kids probably didn't teach it to the grandkids, and then now we're here. And anyways, pain, unfortunately. Next question from Frog Feather. We the people are slaves in relation to the U.S. government. Agree with that. How do we evoke our individual sovereignty and remove those who would infringe upon it? In the United States, in federalism, I think it's back to individual states' rights. We have gone way far off from what it was designed to be. The federal government and who we elect makes such a difference in everyone's life because they have too much power. And the beautiful thing about federalism, if you don't like California, you can move to Wyoming, Idaho, etc. And guess what? California is going to go broke without federal government printing. And so they're going to learn a lesson, good and hard, that you cannot print prosperity. And you cannot promise the moon to every single person who works for the state of California. You cannot promise 100% pension for everybody. It just doesn't work. And back to states' rights is, I think, the way to go. And, you know, the federal government is there for national protection and to somewhat protect constitutional rights from state infringement. That's about it. They're not there for social programs, none of that. And again, back to the previous question, I think this is going to take pain for people to realize that the federal government is promising something. They're writing a check they cannot cash, unfortunately. And rugged individualism, when you need to rely on it, you're less reliant on the government. And we've been able to rely on the government because they've been able to print prosperity, and it only lasts for a certain amount of time. Every government who's done it, it can last for a little bit of time. And in the grand scheme of things, from 1970 to today, that's not that long. And so they've been able to print their way through prosperity. And we're at the end of the road now, unfortunately. Anything else here? Okay, that was the last question. Love these questions. It gets me to think about different things I don't normally think about. I'm going to try to do this weekly. I think I got one more video tomorrow, and then I'm going on vacation for a week. I'm going to try to have a video or two come out while I'm gone, but I won't be able to reply to comments because I will be off the grid. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.